This is a platform for youths and weirdo adults. Like, I'm a weirdo adult. Ben's a weirdo adult. Like, that's who it's for.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's who's really passionate about it. And that can be really, really awesome. But I don't know who anyone is. Like, you know what I mean? And they're all on their best behavior when they talk to me. So...
All right, welcome back to the Worlds Beyond podcast. My name is Don Kianian.
My name is Benjamin Wiener.
I'm Eugene Morgulis.
We are back here, episode 3 of the Worlds Beyond podcast. We are joined by Eugene, aka Emorgul, on the Horizon Worlds platform. He has been, a huge builder of games, experiences, and communities. You've probably seen some of his worlds if you've been on the platform at all. Eugene, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the work you've done and your experiences in Horizon?
Yeah, I got started just building a bunch of like sandbox worlds as I was figuring out the mechanics. And, there was stuff that I wanted to just do myself. Like I wanted to hold a lightsaber and swing it around, or I wanted to like fly around with, like hand rockets and stuff. So I was just building stuff that I thought was fun, throwing them in a world, and was kind of surprised to see that those worlds became really, really popular, where there was no game loop. There was just a lot of fun stuff to do. And so that actually started to inform my building and like the way that I kind of shifted from thinking like, oh, I need to build full games to I just need to build experiences. I need to build spaces that allow for a lot of community interaction. And so then I just kept on extending that. And so that's what I think I like to do the most, is just build big spaces where people can be with their friends. They're highly interactive. There's a lot of emergent gameplay that happens. So, all the stuff interacts with all the other stuff and has like fun little effects. And it's been just a really fun experience. I think my most popular set of worlds now is kind of loosely inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. So you're fighting with fire, water, air, earth, and people seem to really like that, especially because it's so physical, which is another thing that I try to do as often as I can, is kind of use VR to its fullest. So that's where I'm at. It's been really, really fun. I've gotten to know great people like Ben, and let's hope this thing keeps going.
Yeah, and like you've your worlds and experiences kind of like run the gamut of all different types of settings and genres, right? Like I saw that you have one that's kind of in a samurai style, and then you have another one that's more of like a hang gliding kind of experience, right? Like you kind of go all over the map when it comes to the types of experiences you build, right?
Yeah, I just build whatever I want to do. Like that's just it. And luckily, the things that I want to do are also the things that a lot of hyperactive kids want to do. So it ends up working out pretty well.
Awesome. Yeah. And Meta released these new suite of mesh AI features for builders in Horizon. Have you had a chance to play around with those at all? Any first impressions on how it might impact your workflow or your building process?
Yeah. I mean, I've actually not been super big into generative AI, just because I feel like you never get exactly what you want. You're always kind of like accepting what it's choosing to give you. But I think this system is actually pretty great. Like it surprised me. It's a lot easier. I mean, it's literally, you just put in a prompt and it will give you a 3D object or, a few 3D objects. And so for things like background items for like different rock formations, or like I needed like a log cabin wall, I just needed the wall of one, like it'll give me a set of logs. Like, so it's really powerful. It's really just fun to use because it's so easy and accessible. And I think my way of building before is I just I'll find assets from the library or stuff I made myself, I'll rip them apart, I'll put them back together, but I'm still kind of limited based on what's already there. Even if I can come up with a bunch of really interesting ways of, repurposing them, this kind of opens that up even more broadly. And so the toolbox is just greatly expanded, which is both exciting and daunting.
And Ben, you've gotten to play around with those new tools a little bit too. I think you built a world or an experience in something like 6 hours, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So one of the big demos that Meta has been sharing around was one of their artists or engineers built a sort of pirate island where the game was collect 5 coins and you open a door, and they said we did all this in 6 hours and everything was generative AI. So when they released the tool, I thought it would be fun to challenge myself to do the same. And I was able to build out a game. It's called Suitcase Scramble. It takes place in inside of like a little airport baggage claim area, and you're just sorting luggage. So it was quick.
Exactly what I want to do in VR.
That's right. Live your dreams.
Yeah, be at the baggage claim, everyone's favorite place, right? Yeah.
It's actually based off of a recent trip to San Francisco.
I was just going to say, this is actually one of the biggest surprises that I've had working in Horizon. It's that places that are relatable tend to be more attractive than places that are really just like fantastical and out there. And I think that is just a reality of the platform, because it's so overwhelming and you're trying to figure out what's physics like, what am I doing here? Who am I here? That when you see a place that's like an airport, you're like, okay, I know what this place is all about. How can I have fun here? How can I behave here? How can I misbehave here? Just kind of seeing those types of experiences do really well has shaped my philosophy about like, well, how do we need to introduce people to these? How do people need to relate to these experiences? So it's, even something like an airport can be really fun in a VR or in a game experience.
Have you found that to always been the case? Like across your entire experience building for Horizon, has the fantastical always kind of taken second seat to the more realistic and relatable, or has that been a shift that you've seen?
I think it's more like you just need something to ground the player, right? And especially for younger players, like they are just trying to figure out what to do. And so, I don't think this is a shift necessarily in VR. It's just a way that I've observed that people can relate more easily to it. Like it takes such a heavy cognitive load to be in a totally fantastical, fully immersive, 360 dimensional space that a lot of times your mind is working on just figuring it out rather than like just having fun, which is what you really want to be doing. And so kind of the more understandable the space is, the less your brain needs to focus on figuring it out, the more you can actually have fun. Which isn't to say I don't make fantastical stuff, but I always try to ground it in some kind of understandable reality, so people don't have to work so hard to get to like the good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. And, it's interesting that, we're talking about different ways to like make sure people are as immersed and engaged in these experiences as possible. One of them is kind of like lowering that, cognitive barrier to entry, so to speak, right? With this push that Meta has done towards more mobile friendly experiences, have you found that, you've had to lower that cognitive barrier even more so for people who don't have a headset when they're walking around your experiences?
Yeah. I think mobile experiences have to be almost on rails. Like there's just not a strong desire or even a strong, ability to just be like a little person navigating a space and exploring it and figuring out what it's all about when you're on your phone. That experience can be really wonderful in VR. You're walking around this big immersive space. You're saying, oh, does this work? Can I do this? What does this switch do? And on mobile, it's just not the same kind of pleasure that we get from engaging in digital spaces, engaging with digital spaces like on that medium. So it's a completely different style of building. It's a completely different style of gameplay. It's a completely different style of joy that people get from the interactions. And yeah, one of the limiting factors is you really have to point people in the direction of the interaction on mobile, whereas in VR you can kind of let them explore a little bit and then like be delighted and surprised when they figure it out.
Well, and just this morning when we were, Eugene and I will chat from time to time, and just this morning we were talking about he was playtesting the suitcase game, which just for context, basically you hit start. Suitcases start rolling down the conveyor belt, and you can there's two switches you can hit to sort of change what direction they go, and you have to get them in the correct bin. And one of the interesting things that Eugene said this morning is he's like, wow, he's like, I know exactly what this would look like if you had used a game engine that was built for building mobile games. And
which you did not, to be very clear.
which I did not. I used Horizon, which is, a platform for creating VR games that is now getting some feature sets to help build mobile experiences. But it's a real challenge to build for mobile on the platform. And I don't know that I built that game with like mobile particularly in mind. It happens to play fine on mobile. But it's not like if I were to like actually design a mobile version of it, it would be 2D, right? Like it would just be, you would just tap the screen. That's all you'd do. There would be no reason to have a little guy that runs around. And
yeah, it's almost like embodiment is the main strength of VR, and embodiment is the main impediment of mobile. And that makes it very hard to build a game for both. Which then, of course, you then turn around and be like, well, that's a design challenge. So, go at it.
When I met Eugene, we were working, we had both been brought on to work on the Office world. And that was one of the first worlds that was mobile first, right? Or mobile optimized. And that was a huge challenge. I remember the Kevin's chili contest. The idea where like you're carrying the chili and you're sort of navigating the office and trying not to spill it. And, we had built out this really cool sort of balancing mechanic because, VR was basically all that Horizon was. And then, it says like, well, how is this going to work on mobile? Right. And how is it going to work on desktop? Although I'm pretty sure only 1% of users use desktop, and I'm pretty sure that all of that 1% is developers testing their content.
Yeah, so it's almost like you have to dumb down the mechanics quite a bit when it comes to physicality. But at the same time, you also have to increase the complexity of UI elements that you don't worry about as much in VR. So it's challenging to develop for both at the same time.
And Ben, I think this is the first podcast that we're recording after you've come back from GDC. Was there anything that they talked about there that, may either kind of push more people towards developing for mobile or the other way around, maybe? Was there anything interesting coming out of GDC?
One of the things they talked about, they talked about a lot of AI generation tools, and a lot of that was released either, yesterday or today. We got skybox generation, texture generation. We have this now mesh generation, audio, generation. All of these things are tools that make tinkering on Horizon easier. And these are all features that are built into the desktop editor. It's not in the VR creation tool set. So at the very least, you have to be on a 2D screen to use some of these tools. One of the things that they mentioned, they say coming towards the end of this year is scene generation. So instead of, right now, the best way to use this mesh sort of generator is, you don't say, I want the interior of an airport. You say, I would like a wall panel that looks like it could be in the interior of an airport. And I want a door, like a sliding glass door. And I want a navy blue carpet, right? And then you piece all those together. Like, I want an electrical outlet panel, right? Mm-hmm. And then you piece all those together as separate instances. Scene generation, if it works, right? Like, and I guess like AI is going to be pretty quick. I don't want to sound like I'm a doubter. It will be like, make me a beautiful island retreat with a small lagoon in the middle. There is a dock and a few boats floating in the water. And theoretically, it'll magically make that appear in front of you in a matter of minutes. And it'll all look cohesive and in a single art style. And that is the vision. You'll say, and I want to be able to swing from vines, and that mechanic will just drop in, and that'd be pretty cool.
This is kind of like the stuff that we were talking about with Scott on last episode, right? You just you use the AI tools to focus on the stuff that you're not as good at, or the stuff you don't want to focus on as much. Like whether you're a designer, you use it to build the scripting, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. If you're a scripter, you use it to build the design elements, like all of that kind of thing, right? So it sounds like we're maybe getting a step closer to that point.
I think there's a pitfall in talking about AI where whatever level you like to use it at, that is the correct level. And if people are using it less, you're like, oh, well, you're not making, smart use of the tools. And if you're using it more, you're like, oh, you're cheating. That's not art. And like where I am, that's exactly the right place to be. And so yeah, I mean, I have doubts that something like scene generation will lead to good experiences. I think it really is important to like craft an emotional experience for someone, not just like plunk down, a pirate lagoon or whatever. I think the arranging of things is really important. Like, it's something I spend a ton of time on, not because it's tedious, but because it's extremely important to like think of what are people seeing? They first come into the world. What is their first like vision, and what are they understanding based on their seeing? When they walk, over to the tutorial area, what are they seeing then? What are the sight lines? I mean, again, this is applicable to both VR and mobile, but I do tend to think about it in VR. Things like that are really important because it's a very visual medium. So like we understand the world visually. The idea that like you're just going to give me this fully crafted with all of that kind of understanding and design philosophy baked in seems really, really hard. And I think the massive limitation is how modular is this? Like how changeable is this? So if I realize I can't have a tree there, right? That blocks something really important. I need to have like 2 trees, or I need to just move it all together. Can I do that easily? And if you can't do that easily, then what you're going to get is people just not doing it. The AI tools that I really like are the ones that are easy to manipulate after the creation. So like you put it into another design program, easily mix stuff around, put it back. Like if it's not like that, then you're going to get a lot of almost okay worlds or almost okay scenes or almost okay assets. And the whole quality is just going to start to dip down.
I would go so
it's
far
just too
as to
convenient,
say, you're going to get some almost okay worlds, some almost okay experiences, and you're going to get a lot of really not good experiences because it's, if you don't understand composition, if you don't understand, core gameplay loops, if you don't understand user flow, then like you can generate as much stuff as you want, but if it doesn't look like it belongs in the same world, or if it gets in the way of the experience, it's just not going to be a good experience.
To be fair, that happens now, right? Like there's a ton of worlds in Horizon that people are just like, there's worlds in worlds. They just changed the name from Horizon Worlds to just Worlds.
That's true.
There are a lot of worlds where, clearly someone had an idea, threw some stuff together, and then, hit publish and then moved on. And that's fine. Like you're not required to fully bake absolutely every single idea. I do think AI kind of tricks you into thinking things are more fully baked than they are. So, but it's not a totally new phenomenon. It's not
something that's new. It's that it's going to be easier.
Eugene, you mentioned that like you kind of see yourself as like a jack of all trades sort of role, at least at the earlier stages when you were building these experiences. In your kind of ideal situation where AI tools have the modularity for you to like work on something after you prompt it and get the initial result or what have you, where would it sit in your workflow? Like, where do you see those tools being the most impactful in how you go about building your experiences?
I mean, I actually think like, again, the 3D asset generation is really is good. And if it keeps getting better, it's extremely useful. And so I'm making a world right now that is like an Arctic survival world, and you're trying to go from fire to fire before you freeze. And you can go with like your friends, and like if you're closer together, you lose heat. You're losing heat slower because you're close. And so I need a bunch of different rock formations. And so what I've been doing is seeing like, okay, what rocks are there in Horizon's asset library? Can I tint them bluish, whitish? Mm-hmm. And can I stretch and squash and arrange them in a bunch of different ways, to build this whole course? And that was doing all right. It looked pretty good, actually. But if I can say, icy cliff face in an AI generator, and if I really like what it puts out, now I have a bunch more rocks that I can play around with, right? And for something like that, I don't need it to be exact. I don't need it to be like very specifically built. I just need a nice visual that would be pretty hard to generate on my own. It's there to fill out the world. It's hard to imagine building a world around AI or an AI object, but we'll see how good the technology gets.
Ben, I don't know if these tools are going to make their way into any of the stuff you're working on for some of the studio work that you're doing. Do you see it impacting your workflows or the projects you're working on in any sort of meaningful way, or is it still a little too early?
Well, unfortunately, all the projects that I'm working on are sort of past the ideation phase right now, because that's where I think it's really the most powerful. This game that I threw together yesterday is great. It feels like a first pass on an early prototype, sort of almost like gray boxing of art and like mood art and stuff like that. But, if we were really working on something like this or really make a polished product, I don't think any of the AI stuff that I made would make it into the final product. Maybe that's not entirely true. I have like a little airplane that's like flying overhead and it's just like the silhouette that's really important. So like I could see something like that, like being final art. If it didn't take place inside, like the skybox is actually like looks quite nice. Like I think I might use an AI, one of the AI skyboxes, if it's just right. Like if you'd asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said absolutely not. No AI would ever make it into production on anything I work on. Now I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, well, like this thing that's off in the distance, that's that's okay. Some of this like background terrain, like what Eugene was talking about. Maybe if we were like really, really tougher time, but where it's really, really powerful is just part of what was really nice yesterday of going in and making the game and being able to like print out those little 3D assets was I was able to just go and do it, and I wasn't waiting on anybody. I was able to be that solo developer again. Not for anything that I feel is like a super strong title, right? But to just like go and build and tinker and do it for fun. Like I didn't make that game because I was trying to like make something that's going to make a lot of money. I did it because I was like, oh, like it would be fun to see if I can use this to make something in 6 hours. And I'm doing that for me as like an experiment and familiarizing myself with the tools. And, but yeah, ideation and prototyping is like, that's where we're going to use it. And that's going to speed us up, in a big way in future projects.
But to push on that a little bit, as people like to say,
sure.
It depends what kind of content you're building. And I think there is always been a tension, especially in Horizon, like, are we building games or are we building social spaces or are we building content? And I actually think that, building games quickly, putting them out, seeing how they do, and then maybe, going in and updating or growing as needed. Or no, you say that's the experience that this is. I'm glad people like it. Now I'm going to make another thing. And now people know that I have a good brand for, quick, fun experiences. Like that was my model for a really long time. I'm actually trying to get back to that model because now, the things that I make I feel too long to make because I know all the things that I'm doing wrong. So I can, so it takes me a long time to actually go and fix them and, polish them. But if your model is, I'm going to make fast experiences and you kind of find a way to actually make those satisfying, even in quick bursts, I think AI is going to really speed that process up where you're not, first draft becomes final draft, right? The ideation phase becomes the completion phase. I actually don't I don't want to judge that. Like that's a model of building that I think is valid if the ultimate experience is good, but.
Right. I don't disagree with that. But, like in contrast to that, like the type of project work that I'm doing is, our company's paid, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to build content. It's like, I don't know, it feels kind of sketchy to get paid to do something on like a 5-month project and just hit generate, I
don't know.
It's interesting, right? Like it's an ethical question because it's like, how much work are you putting into it versus relying whole cloth on the AI models to do it for you, right? As long as, you're not being too lazy about it and just taking some AI output, blasting it out there and presenting it like it's your idea, then that's where you start entering into these like questionable areas, right? But if you're still having hands-on, iterating on your prompt, or, making tweaks after something is generated, or, combining different outputs from different AI tools to create something that is unique in and of itself, then you start getting into like still maintaining the human creativity element, which I think still, is a valid approach to building these types of experiences.
Yeah, I mean, this is why all the conversations like is AI art,
right, just
evolve into like what I talked about before, where it's like, well, however you like to use it, that's the okay use for it.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, I don't think it's an ethical question to some extent if you're getting into like IP infringement and a legal question as well. When it comes to like how much effort are you putting in to get to a final product, I don't think there's an ethical issue there. Like, the final product is the final product. If it's good, it's good. If a person has a genuine experience that they enjoy, that is what you've been commissioned for, or that's at least what you've been striving for. So how you get there, I don't think really matters. It does become challenging when AI art is an impediment to that, right? Because it is substituting what is like I think like we see so many AI images now, like just over the last 2 years, suddenly we're pretty good at recognizing like AI slop, and like our eyes just kind of glaze over it, and then we move on. Like, if you're relying on that, then you are creating an impediment. But if you find a way to use it that actually provides for a richer experience, then at that point it's just a tool.
Yeah.
I part of the tongue in cheek, of the suitcase scramble is I did one of those. I took a picture of myself behind a bunch of suitcases, and I had it put like an anime filter over it in ChatGPT, and I imported that. And that's, to me, it's like, again, it's like, okay, well, like if this was not like an afternoon thing that I slapped together, like I would put a lot more thought into something like that. I know that Eugene has had a lot of success. Like I've seen that you've been experimenting with AI a bit on your thumbnails.
Yeah, I mean, I traditionally I've not really liked, again, the way I use it is good. The way literally everyone else uses it. I think when you are presenting an AI thumbnail that misrepresents the experience or the look of the world, then that's not very good. I think if you use an AI thumbnail that looks like all the other AI that we see all around, then you're not standing out. If you use it to design something that actually does stand out, that actually does fairly represent the world, okay. So it's really hard to draw a line and say, this is good, this is bad, or this is okay, this is not. It just has to go to like the final result. And by the way, if I find that if there was an easy way to A/B test thumbnails on the Horizon Worlds platform, there isn't. But if there were, I would absolutely try an AI kind of thumbnail that I'm at least proud of, versus one that I've kind of made myself by like taking a picture of myself in the world, which is how I've done it in the past. Yeah. I would love to try that. I'm curious to see what would happen.
Well, and I will say that like one of the things, this is like literally the last thing I threw into that world earlier today, was I went to ChatGPT, of course, my old friend, and I just said, hey, and I said, hey, please give me, you always say please, just in case. To please give me a fake logo for an airline called Habitaire.
Nice.
And it did. It gave me like this nice looking, it was like a little hummingbird, red and blue, and white background. And I just imported that as a texture, threw it on a plane, threw it on the wall, and now my airport, has a brand. So, so to me, I'm like, hey, like this is a very specific use. Like I'm coming up with the thing. I just need a logo to put in there to sort of enhance the world a little bit. that to me like felt like a pretty strong use of AI.
Yeah.
Again, as like someone who's just making it by myself, I think I'd always much rather still to this point like use like a graphic designer if I have that resource available to me on a project.
Well, you didn't need any, like that logo didn't need depth, right? It needed to be a logo that exists because you expect a logo on a wall. It didn't have like, I haven't seen it yet. Sounds kind of cool. I'm looking forward to seeing it. But like, if it needs to have a very specific type of personality, a very specific type of message, like I think it's hard. It's not impossible, but I think it's hard to get that from AI. I mean, it's kind of like the icy cliffs that I was talking about. I don't need them to look a specific way. I just need to look them like an idea of icy cliffs.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'll work with them to, to try to kind of position them correctly. It's AI is never going to bring like the depth that you need to something that requires it. And like that still has to come from us. At least currently.
That's why I never use any prompts that ask it to create any like ravines, gorges, canyons. Just AI can't do depth.
Yeah, there you
go. Eugene knew what was coming. Yeah. You can see it on his face.
Well, there is a definition of art that I think that kind of helps in this whole conversation. And I don't remember who said it, but it's like art is something that has the aesthetic quality to attract your attention and the depth to reward that attention. And I think AI has gotten to the point where it definitely has the aesthetic quality to attract, right? But it almost never has the depth to actually reward that attention. And in fact, the more you look at it, the worse it gets, which is kind of a fascinating exercise. And so I think, that depth component, like that's still what distinguishes something that's made by a person or something that's made with like intentionality than something that's just kind of like presented and thrown together by a machine.
And along those lines, an area of building these, VR experiences and games that's extremely crucial for world immersion and kind of rewarding that attention that you're, attracting from your users is the actual like interactions that they're having in the world and the experiences they're having when they do a certain thing or walk up to a certain object or something along those lines, right? So, what are the things that you keep in mind, Eugene, when you're building out those types of interactions to make sure that they're as rewarding and satisfying for your users as possible?
For me, the interactions are everything. Like that is what you go to VR to do, or that is what I go to VR to do. And the people who like my worlds, like I guess tend to agree. I think with interactivity, like it just requires having that sense within yourself of like, is this a delightful and engaging thing that I want to do? Like, is this something that I want to do repeatedly? Is this something that, when I hoped what the experience would be of jumping off a building and, shooting a grappling hook and swinging, do I get some of that experience? And if not, then the interaction isn't good enough yet. And so I think having like kind of like the sensitivity and dare I say courage to kind of admit like, no, still not working, still not good enough. I think that's really important. And there's a few things there, like the things that you do the most should be the things that are fun to do. Mm-hmm. So like, so you mentioned like the samurai world before. That world is all about chopping stuff and collecting swords. That world was not built around the swords. Like there's like 40 really cool swords and you can, gain XP and buy and get gold and buy them with gold and all that stuff. The swords were the last thing that I built in that world. The first thing that I built in that world was like a single stalk of bamboo. And I was actually building it for a different world, for a tutorial in a different world. And I realized that chopping a bamboo and having it cut exactly where you cut it and then slowly, rising up again with a satisfying little growing sound and a pop, like that felt amazing. And I had this moment where I'm like, this is a game, just chopping bamboo is a game. So I stopped working on that other game and started working on the game that became, was for a while my most popular one. But it was, again, built around that one mechanic of just chopping something, and then everything else kind of grew around it. And so I think, again, having that sensitivity just to be like, I'm going to be chopping 1 million stalks of bamboo, but chopping them is not fun, then you don't have a fun game. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter how cool the swords are. If the thing you're doing the most isn't fun, it's not going to be fun. I actually had a game that Ben tried where it was all about like running over electrified platforms. You had to guess which ones were electrified. And if you ran over the wrong one, you got zapped and started at the beginning. But then you could see which ones were the dangerous ones. And so you could kind of pick your way through it. And I found myself putting a bridge, just from as I was developing it, like just putting a bridge over the platforms just so I could get to the end and like test those things. And I'm like, hang on, if I'm not having fun with the main interaction of my game, which is running through tiles, then maybe others won't either. And so I had to like literally just scrap it and completely and start over. So again, like building those interactions, like you just have to be sensitive. Is this fun? Is this a complete interaction? Or does this need something extra? And sometimes this extra thing can be like a sound effect or a visual effect or a haptic to just really lock in that experience. But you got to be willing just to say like, no, not good enough yet.
And that game, which has become Thieves and Warlocks, and in my opinion, criminally underrated. I just think it's such a great like short loop game. I think the buzzword these days is snackable. You go in, you play, you jump through. It's just really satisfying. It feels really good.
And Eugene, it's interesting, like what you mentioned about the story about, building the bridge. For me personally, right, I don't, I'm not a big VR experience developer, but I make music. And there's often times where I get stuck on like a 4 or 8 bar loop and I'm just listening to it incessantly, making tweaks here and there until it sounds just the way I want it to, until the point where I've listened to it so much it's lost all meaning and like I'm skipping over parts to get to the part that I know I want to focus on and all this kind of stuff, right? So like when you are like really entrenched in building a world and fine tuning little things here and there, how are you checking in with yourself on like, this is still fun versus like, I'm skipping over this just so I can focus on the bit that I want to focus on?
I mean, that's what it is. It's, am I skipping over this or not? Like I have a world that I'm working on now that plays with like player scale, which is a tool we only got, a week ago or so. Something we've been begging for, but now like I can actually make you small or make you big, and you can still interact with people who are different sizes. I made this mechanic: you touch a thing and pop, you're small. It was fine, like it worked, and being small is fun, but there was nothing special about that mechanic itself. And so I was like, okay, what else does this need? And I added all this kind of whole process to it where like, you touch the thing, you don't just pop and you're small, you actually shrink, right? And there's a little slide whistle down that happens to shrink. And there's like a little swirling animation with like a little funnel. So like and then I was like, oh my God, right? And now every time I'm working on that world, sometimes I will literally just touch the thing that makes me small. It's like a little potion bottle, like touch the thing that makes me small just because that experience is fun. And so when you catch yourself just casually playing your game or casually interacting with, a thing because it's fun and delightful, like that's when you know you have something.
One of my greatest like things I have to resist after I've released something that I feel really good about is, like leaderboards are a thing that like can attract users. People like to be competitive and play. And I have a really bad habit of like I try not to like link those up until I publish the world. But even then, once I publish the world, I'm still playing and I'm still like testing and making polish. And I always wind up getting caught up and like going up the leaderboard.
Topping your own leaderboard. Yeah.
Topping my own leaderboard. So I'm hoping somebody beats my high score. Yeah. Someone dethrones me soon, but
I can empathize. I'm the number one listener of all of my songs. So
I love it.
Another aspect of building, these experiences and games that we haven't touched on across this podcast a lot. We focused a lot on the technology behind it, right? But another aspect that we haven't really touched on is the actual community and like the player base that you're building coming into these worlds and experiences. Have you noticed anything, or do you have any tips, Eugene, on building and cultivating a community around a certain experience or even across experiences? Like, fans of Emorgul, that follow your world from, world A to world B or something like that.
I think you have to recognize there's a lot of things. And this is probably stuff that community builders have known for many, many years, and stuff that I'm just kind of discovering now as I've been thrust into this position. There are definitely culture setters among, your community members. Like you kind of think that, I want to create like the broadest community possible. But there's usually a handful of people that are actually holding that community up, for better or for worse. I've actually seen both parts of that. Like, where there are people who really are dedicated, who really do just want to play in the worlds, get better, bring other folks in there, make their own content, for on TikTok or YouTube. Like that, all that stuff's wonderful. And I think encouraging not just the broad community, but like really encouraging the people who are like I said, are holding it up is really important. And then on the other side of the coin, recognizing that like it takes a very small, like a shockingly small handful of people to like ruin a Discord. And it's really sad to say, like it really just takes like a few people spamming, harshing the vibes, to drive people away. So it's like you have to be vigilant on that front as well. That's really hard. That's something I've been struggling with lately. And I don't think I'm winning that battle, but it's not something you can ignore. It's a process. It's much easier just to build stuff you like than to actually manage people interacting.
Yeah, Eugene doesn't have fans; he has zealots.
Oh man, the cult
there
of
is a bit of a personality cult. It's true.
They really worship you as the god that built these worlds, huh?
Well, I added in my most popular current world is element battling sandbox, and I take all my different element powers: earth, water, air, fire, and all of them have individual worlds dedicated to them with mini games, challenges, battling areas. And so I'm extraordinarily proud of them. They've all been really popular. But then I made one world that's like combines all of them together. Super duper fun. And I just added a cube to that world. It looks like a black metal Rubik's cube. And I'm like trying to get people to worship the cube. I'm like, guys, let's all focus our adoration on the cube. The cube is the source of everything.
I think we're past trying. I think people are worshiping it. Yeah.
It absolutely worked because the cube is mysterious and important.
Yeah.
Although now there's also a war over the cube and different factions have arisen, and that's actually where some of the drama and engagement that I'm trying to tamp down. That's where that arose from. So the cube really has taken over. So it's got its own little cult now.
Oh man. Well, so if anyone wants to pick a side, they just gotta hop into this world and start seeing which side of the war they fall on. Huh?
And again, something that's super fun for 98% of people. And 2% of people just become a little dysregulated and take it a little bit too seriously. But again, like this is, I don't have a staff. I don't have a dedicated community manager or a, Discord manager or a social media person. Like it's all just me figuring this out and doing my best. So you learn stuff, you move on.
Yeah. And, the power of building these really, passionate communities of people who are true fans of the work that you're doing, not just, there to, cause trouble and chaos and whatnot. Right. If these are actually true, passionate people who are enjoying the stuff you're doing, often they'll, step up and volunteer to take some sort of like community building, community moderation role. Like you've seen those across all kinds of different media platforms and communities, right? Where, it elevates the most loyal and passionate of the followers in those spaces.
Yeah. But then you just have to be good about choosing those people. Right. That's like, this is a platform for youths and weirdo adults. Like, I'm a weirdo adult. Ben's a weirdo adult. Like, that's who it's for.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's who's really passionate about it. And that can be really, really awesome. But I don't know who anyone is. Like, you know what I mean? And they're all on their best behavior when they talk to me. So there is a bit of an issue with, like, who you elevate, right? Are you elevating the right people to lead these communities? And, you're dealing with the internet. So I don't, you kind of have to just use your judgment. It's tricky.
We've talked a lot about, kind of these AI tools that have made their way into Horizon and the creator tools there. Is there anything that you are excited about for the future or hoping for or looking forward to now that you've seen how some of these tools are being applied? Like, is there anything that you've seen, like, now that we have like the mesh generator, for example, has that sparked anything for you? Like, ooh, it'd be really cool if we had something like this. Or is there anything that you're really, keeping your eye out on the future?
No.
Good to know. Awesome. All right.
The things that really excite me, like, just to actually give you a complete answer, like, the mesh generation is cool, but I'd actually rather have like a library full of human-made assets. You know what I mean? Like, the things that excite me are when they expand our capabilities to make new things. So what I said before about, they gave us the power to change the scale of players. That opens up a world of opportunities for gameplay that simply did not exist in the past, right? That has been the most excited that I have been in Horizon in a very long time. They recently did a pilot, are doing a pilot where we can actually design our own avatar clothing. Like, before, you could make hats or like really like, or like belts essentially, but they were just like objects that hung onto the players. They've recently let a handful of creators like make actual avatar clothing. That has opened up a ton of opportunities for creativity, for rewards. It's a really interesting combination of like AI and your own kind of tinkering and adding your own stuff, on the textures. Like, that's what excites me, right? That expands my creativity, that expands my capability to bring new experiences to people that I think are really, really fun, and hopefully they agree. All the other stuff is like nice. It's a nice tool to fill out that world, but it doesn't get me as excited as like the actual capabilities of the platform expanding. Again,
talking from like my music production perspective, right? Having, AI vocal generators, like you said, it's nice, but it's not something that I'm like getting super, jazzed about. The stuff that makes me the most excited when it comes to music is like a new synthesizer plugin that's got all kinds of flexibility and power to create all kinds of weird sounds that you wouldn't have made in the past, like something. So like, I see what you mean, where like these AI tools, they're cool, but like the stuff that gets me excited is still the stuff that I get my hands on and have a lot of control over, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not doing anything that we can't already do. It's just doing it faster and less good.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And we like to kind of end these episodes with any tips you might have for world builders or experience creators on the platform. Anything that over your years building these experiences on Horizon that you would give to maybe like a first timer who's just getting into the Horizon world's space.
I'm not sure what the first timer experience is like anymore, because I think they've made VR building a little bit less accessible by pushing folks to the desktop. So that's I've been very open about not being a fan of that strategy. Having said that, like, I still have a ton of people on my Discord who like get inspired by the worlds that they play that I've made, and they want to make their own versions of them and stuff like that. And so they're all making it in VR. They're all making it physically. So I love to see that. And my advice to them is always like, start small. If you just want to make a map, like, sure, go nuts, put a bunch of shapes into it, color them whatever you want, like, have fun. If you want to make like interactive things and things that require scripting, like, start small, like make a jetpack, right? Mm-hmm. Make a lightsaber or a laser sword or whatever. Make little interactions that you can feel good about, as opposed to saying like, I'm going to make, Fortnite in VR. Like I'm going to make a huge thing. You just get overwhelmed. If you can make something small and then grow out from that, you're going to have a much easier time than like overloading yourself, trying to make systems, which I actually find to be the hardest thing.
Yeah. If you set your sights too high, you kind of become paralyzed by all the different ways that you can or need to go. Right. So, and that kind of echoes a lot of the advice that we've heard across the other episodes, where it's like, if you've got an idea, just hop in, start building it, just tinker around with the tools, get familiar with it so that you can bring some of these ideas to life. Yeah. And, Eugene, anything you want, any worlds that you're working on, anything that you're really excited about that you want to point people towards, any exciting things on the horizon on coming next in the world of Emorgul? Is there another second cube that we can look to worship, or?
You gotta send us a picture of that cube so we can throw it up on the screen.
Sure, I will. The exciting stuff for like element battling is just that I continue to update it. Like I have an very active Discord that is extremely vocal about like balancing stuff, and like, it would be cool if we had this power too, or this power is too powerful, and so it needs like so it's a constant. It's constantly in flux, and I actually have different eras of that world based on new stuff that I put into it. So we're right now in our third era, I believe, and the fourth one is right around the corner. So that'll bring some cool new powers and stuff like that. And then there's the worlds that I'm building. That I'm, like I said, I'm trying to get back to like smaller, faster worlds. I have an Arctic survival world coming out called We'll Only Make It Together. And then I have another world that kind of plays with that scale issue. I don't know what I'm going to call it that. Maybe Little Wizards, something like that, because it's based like a little wizard cottage. I actually used AI to make a little chibi anime wizard of my own avatar. And you can play spin the bottle with it. And then there's like a whole, which is a weird element of that world. It's just funny and dumb. But then you can also make yourself small and bounce around and collect coins, or make yourself big and then go after the people who are small. It's weird. It's wacky. It's coming together really fast. And so like, I'm very excited to put that out at the end of the month. So look for all those things, all under the Emorgul brand, wherever you get your VR, but really only in the one place that it exists, which is Horizon Worlds, now called Worlds, on VR or mobile.
The platform formerly known as.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like cool. Ben, anything people can look out for on the Habit XR horizon?
Plugging away on that project work. And of course,
Suitcase Scramble. What's wrong with this?
Suitcase Scramble. Check out Suitcase Scramble, playable on mobile and VR, but play on mobile.
Not those mobile hours.
That mobile engagement. We're looking to boost those numbers for sure. But but it's kind of a cool experiment. Check it out. I don't know that it's going to have like the most staying power of anything we've built, but it was, for what it is, it was a fun build, and I'll continue to polish it here and there as I have time. Plants
and Bugs is still out there for people to play, so hop into that if you haven't yet. Give those worlds a visit and start collecting your plants and your bugs there too. Anyone who's stuck around and listened and watched the podcast, thanks, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Share it out to your friends who might be interested in following anything in the VR technology space, and we hope to catch you on the next one. Until then, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.